So first off, I'd like to thank you guys for joining today. This is going to be a more casual event, but just want to go over some of the things that have changed since Diablo 2 Legacy, or that are just kind of brand new to the resurrected kind of modding scene. And this will be especially helpful for players who are familiar with Legacy modding, but are thinking about, transitioning to Diablo 2 Resurrected, or, seeing kind of what it's like. So with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and roll right into some of the different changes here. I got a little document prepared. If you don't like listening, you'd rather read along yourself. These are some of the things that have changed. So obviously the big elephant in the room, I'll just go ahead and get to that right away, is that we don't currently have support for code editing, DLL injection, TCP/IP for multiplayer. All that kind of stuff is off the table right now, just due to some past legal experiences that other modders have had. So while, like with everything else, I'm sure it'll come in time. At least right now, there's just no public discussion of that kind of thing. That's all, it's with that kind of stuff just done in the behind the scenes spaces. So understand that, obviously if that's important to you, like it is for a lot of us, then, you're just going to have to wait on that, or just kind of do it on your own, not so out in the open, basically. So again, just be mindful of that. That's going to be obviously a big downturn for a lot of people. But if you are able to get past that, or if you're kind of focused on single player aspects anyways, then I personally feel there might be a lot that you can enjoy from Resurrected. So with the negative stuff out of the way, let's kind of transition to some of the more positive stuff. So with that, there is a lot of new things that used to be soft or hard-coded in Legacy, that are now soft-coded and included in a text file or something like that. So one of the big things, although obviously not hard-coded or anything, is that there's now an official data guide. So this comes from Blizzard, and at least the last couple updates, they've updated it with every patch. So this will break down, your different functions for skills. It'll show all the tables, certain things that have calculations, like your, drop rate and things like that. You'll have those calculations included in the text file. But as you can see, it'll break down every function, some of the different parameters or columns it can use, and it'll explain, for the most part, in pretty good detail, exactly how everything functions. So no more just kind of guessing what some of these do, or just knowing that, oh, I just need to copy the one from this skill. Now you can really start understanding how everything is broken down, and how all of it, will translate into the game. So obviously a huge quality of life improvement for modders, just having it all in one file that is updated, from the source. So it's pretty good information overall. So definitely a big plus there. Again, it just kind of breaks down everything in the game. So I highly recommend, taking a look at that if you're getting into resurrected modding. Another big thing is just lots of the little soft code edits that are now possible, such as your hirelings. You can now specify what type of weapons they can equip, as well as class-specific items, like an Amazon only, a Necro only item, things like that. If you have those in your mod, you can give them basically in a class equivalent, so that they can wear those types of things also. Included in that kind of new soft code options thing is the ability to create a new NPC. So you'll see here in these files, if I'm in the right folder, that is, if we go into our Excel folder here, we can see these template files. So you can rename these to .text, and they are basically the template for getting started, but it will allow you to create your own NPC as well as assign dialogue to that NPC. You can also do things like, just like a normal NPC, it can say different things depending on what class is talking to it and things like that. Let me see if I can open that real quick. and just give you an example. So here we go. So you can see here that it's just now a new text file that is an option in Resurrected that will allow you to specify your NPC or the monster ID here, what entry in the string JSON to use for this gossip, and then as well as some settings on, again, which class might talk to it, whether she's going to run up with that NPC alert icon and try to talk to you and all that stuff. So you can feel free to mess around with that stuff, just kind of a new perk. A real small thing, but I personally found it enjoyable, is that new characters can start with any quality gear now in care stats stock text. So you're no longer limited to like just normal items and things like that. You can spawn them with uniques or whatever else if you want. And then also in line with that, I'm going to go ahead and actually start up the mod, or our mod, just for some visual representation as we go along here. And I apologize for you guys. I have been not sharing the screen on Discord. I skipped a step. I remembered to start the YouTube video and not the screen sharing. All right, you guys with me? I apologize, Discord guys. You guys should have been pinging me. No, I'm so sorry about that. All right, now that DJ the Troll is done, let's get back into it. So you didn't lose much. Let me just real quick for you Discord guys go back over the data guide and stuff. So again, this is included by Blizzard. So this is what I was just going through, showing all the different functions, all the data tables. So if you wanted to look at something, for example, what does serve do 10? You can see how it breaks down, what columns it's going to use for that function. And again, this is all provided by Blizzard. And at least so far, they've been doing pretty good on updating it with the patches. So just definitely a new resource that's kind of available. We had some text guides, if you will, before, but there was a lot of missing information. There was a lot of guesswork, and now it's just kind of all broken down nice and clean for us. So sorry again. Let's go ahead and get back into the mod and show you some of the things I was trying to. Little new here, I do apologize. All right, so we're going to go just hire ourselves a mod real quick, or a merc. Can't even talk now, I'm all flustered. And you can see here that, we have all our merc icons and stuff. You can now expand these. So you can have up to 6. The skills or the merc.txt file always had room for 6, but it would only ever kind of show 3 on the actual panel. So just real quick here, I'm going to go to hireling.txt, and you can see here that we always had skill 4, skill 5, skill 6, etc. But you can never just get them to display unless you're doing code editing and stuff like that. Now you can just add some more on. We'll actually have that coming in the next update. I didn't have that quite ready for this video, but they're also very easy to change and just kind of extend. So we can do that in a couple ways, but if we just go to skill desktop text, I'll just show you that real quick. We now have a new column for the hireable icon cell, so you can just assign that exact image frame for whatever it is, just like you do with the icon cells. You can now do that for hirelings also. So just definitely some nice improvements for hirelings overall, between being able to add more equipment types to them, being able to extend their skill paths visually and stuff, all nice improvements. Now obviously some of this may just be like not important to you. Maybe you didn't play Legacy, or maybe this is your just kind of first foray into Diablo 2. However, for some of you, this may be very important stuff, just because it is kind of new with Diablo 2 Resurrected. Sure, you could probably code edit some of this in, to an existing mod on Legacy, but obviously having the ability to soft code all that is much faster and easier. So obviously some of the big stuff, again, you guys might already know all this. It's just kind of like a duh thing, but there is now a shared stash, and you can expand the tab. So it comes default with 3 shared stash tabs, as well as your personal stash, and you can unlock an additional 4, so that you have lots of storage available to you. And each one of these is going to use, for your modders out there, it's going to share the 8192 byte limit of a character file, but it's going to do that per tab. So there's actually quite a bit of space there. It's not like it's all going on your character file or something like that. So you shouldn't have to worry about overloading your memory or anything with that. So definitely a great feature there. You can now refresh gambling items. So you can ignore our custom NPC here, but just pretend it's E,
stock in just for you.
and you can now refresh your gambling items, and it will always keep track of what you've uh, purchased. So obviously if you're going to purchase a long battle bow, it'll stay in that slot for you. It doesn't go away. So just makes it real easy to find the stuff you're looking for. It's great, a little quality of life thing. Lots of little new text edits. I'm just going to quickly go over these. I've already done videos and stuff on them, but you can now take a red portal to any level. So there's now a cube recipe that you can just go to, again, any level. So let's pretend I had a recipe to turn an identify scroll into a level 2 Andariel. So they could just put it in the cube and skip straight to Andariel if they wanted to. Again, you can do that with any level within the act. It still does share that legacy limit of not being able to portal between acts. So just understand that. You can now show item levels next to items. That's all done in the specific text file for that item type. So just real quick here, I'm going to pull up armor.txt, and we can see here that there's now a new column, show level. So if I wanted to show the level of all caps in the game for whatever reason, then I can just put a 1 in there and we're all done, save, and now all caps, regardless of their quality, will just kind of show that level. If you want it on specific things, maybe only unique items or only set items or whatever, you can also just set that in there. So again, just another quality of life perk. Same thing applies to a declone spawning item. There's now a new, I guess I shouldn't close that yet. There's now a new column at the end of the file here. So we've got Diablo clone weight. Just like before, you put a 1 in there, and now that item can spawn declone. So very easy to change that and customize that how you'd like. Moving right along, hirelings also have that advanced stat display. So we've made some modifications in our mod just for the visuals. Normally it would expand another panel out to the right here, but characters now have the advanced stats display, and then mercenaries also have that, although I didn't give my mercenary or anything, so you just can't see that. So I'll try to fix that real quick.
I put that to good use.
There you go. So again, they have their own advanced stats display, and then obviously we have some other mods to expand their equipment and stuff. But again, just more details, more polish put on the merch, so they feel more like viable alternatives. All skills can be quick cast. This is definitely a new thing. There is an option for it in the game menus. So if we go to gameplay here, we got this quick cast skills option as well as the display bindings. And what that'll allow you to do is set certain you guys have probably used QuickCast. I'm talking like an idiot here. But it'll allow you to quickly cast. I know that's crazy, huh? It'll allow you to quickly cycle between different skills. So here I got a chant over here. I can just pop F3, and as you can see, it immediately went back to my lightning skill. So you don't have to constantly scroll back and forth. You can do things like this to again, just quickly cycle through different skills without having to manage it all the time. In-game characters, or in-game character respec is now a thing. So we've actually added this button onto our skill tree just to make things a little better. You can just click this at any time. Do your respec. It'll respec your stats and your skills. Click it again. It'll go ahead and do that. So you can do that as much as you want. Normally, you would have to hold Alt on a stat button to do this, but again, you can repurpose things in Diablo 2 Resurrected, and we'll get into some of that here in just a few minutes. But that's one more option that can be enabled. And then finally, a lot of people don't like this, but you do have control over it, and that's the ability to break immunities in Resurrected. So obviously everybody's familiar with immune to fire, immune to cold, all that kind of stuff. now with Resurrected, there is a new mechanic, a new stat. Let me actually just show you that real quick, that will allow you to break these immunities. There's a couple ways you can control these stats. In the vanilla implementation, they're done on a Sunder charm, which basically gives you an amount that guarantees all immunities are broken. However, if you don't like that, or you want to apply it on only certain monsters and stuff, you do have that control. So with that said, here are the new stats that we're talking about. These are added into basically the below 255 span of the text file, so we know they're essentially like character stats, as they work before that other stuff. And so this is what's going to control your ability to remove those immunities. And so at default, again, in vanilla, the Thunder Charms have a rating of -300 when they're used, and that just guarantees it works at a 1-to-1 ratio. So any monster that is above 100 resistance will lose, 300, resistance. Now, obviously, so I shouldn't say obviously, this stat does not work once the monster is no longer immune. So the second that monster hits 99 resistance or whatever, the Thunder stat or these stats in particular, they no longer function. So that -300 just guarantees that no matter how high the monster's resistance is, at least in vanilla, along with cold enchanted and other stuff, that it would still be broken by sundering. So I guess my point is that if you don't like sundering, or you want it to be more based on like item resistances, how you have to build those up over time. You don't just get like all resistances max, from a charm. So if you wanted to do, let's say, all enemy immunities -10%, you can do that kind of stuff. It's just like any other stat in that regard. And then finally, if I lock these columns up here, we do have an extra function in the monstats.txt. Helps if I look in the right file, sorry. And again, so we'll lock these up, and we do have just got to find it. All right, sorry about that. So we do have a new column, cannot desecrate. This is to control that kind of sundering. So if you don't want them to be able to have their immunity broken, you don't want them to be affected by that new mechanic at all, you can put a 1 in that section, flag it up, and they can no longer do that. So real quick, I guess I should have shown these are the columns where you can change those Merc weapon types, whether they can use two-handed weapons or not. So if you want a dual-wielding Act 2 Merc, you can do that kind of stuff now. Not a problem there. And then just as a reminder, all this stuff is now in the data guide. So if we just go to that real quick, and I just did a quick search, we can see that it'll tell you exactly what that column does. So just some more kind of, benefits of Resurrected. So we've gone over all just kind of the smaller stuff. There are some big changes as far as how you can interact with things. So obviously a lot of the stuff you might have seen with our UI changes, you're much more flexible in your UI controls. If you want to make yourself a custom menu, add some drop downs, add some animated images, you can do all that kind of stuff using sprites and the built-in JSONs. You have full control, more or less, over how all that stuff functions. So, for example, we have some like skill preview trees here. You can just toss those in. You have a lot of flexibility now in Resurrected to manage the UI how you want. And basically the sky's the limit as far as your creativity and how you want to incorporate those different things go. Now they all are limited within that JSON, so I'm going to just talk about JSONs real quick. I do have a few just quick examples pulled up. JSONs are broken down into essentially this plain text file. There's not a lot of coding jargon or anything like that you need to know. You basically just need to understand some of the basics. Some of the basics are that everything is controlled by a widget. So you'll see, the type here, and this is a text box widget, and it may sound kind of self-explanatory, but that only supports text-related functions inside this widget. Even though if I scroll up here, we have like an image widget, for example, and you can see where it's asking or telling it what file name to use or what image to use for this section, that I can't just paste that in here and still have it work, because it is a text box widget and it just only understands those functions. So as you see how Blizzard does it is they can attach things as child objects, and so I can then attach that image widget as a child to the text box widget, and then now they can both function together. But just understand that everything is a widget and it has a very specific function. This is tab bar widget. This is an inventory grid widget. And so as you go to edit these, just make sure you're understanding how those widgets work. And widgets also extend into missiles and other assets. Everything is done as a component. So just swap the word for widget with component, and it works the same way. So this is a VFX or a visual definition component. This is a track release point component. This is the root component. So everything, again, is just basically a different type of widget, but just like the layout JSONs or such, you can start combining things or adding to them as you want. So just a quick example, here is my entire, if we go from bracket to bracket, here is my entire definition for my first visual effect. I can just copy and paste this, add a little comma here, copy and paste, and now I've stacked this visual effect. So now in game, this will be twice as bright or, twice as thick or, whatever kind of trail that is. But because we attached a transform component to it, maybe we want to move this second one around some. So currently it sits about 4 meters above the ground, or 4 feet above the ground, I should say. Maybe we want the second one to appear 5 feet above the ground. So it's just a little higher than this one. Maybe we wanted it to appear 1 foot in front of the caster instead. So you can start duplicating these, shuffling them around, changing the orientations. So maybe I wanted that particle to, rotate on the y-axis by 60%. So now instead of horizontal, it's vertical, something like that. You have control over all that kind of particle control, model control, anything like that in these JSONs. So if you wanted to do something, I'm just going to real quick here. We're going to go to like a fallen. I'm just going to open up a fallen.json. We're going to take a quick look at some of the things in there. We'll format that giant mess. And we can see here, let me go to the root section real quick. And so again, we can see the fallen, even though it's a character model and not like a particle or missile, it has all the same stuff. So it has a transform definition component. And if we wanted to make the fallen 10 times the size it is in game, it's as easy as just popping a 10 in there in the scale section and hitting save, and now your monster is 10 times bigger in game. So you do have a lot of control over those kind of modifications, whereas, you would have to take a lot of extra time and redo, images and stuff for that kind of thing before. And then just like with everything else, you can attach particles, different models, etc., just by copying that whole entire, component, and then, pasting it, editing it, etc. So just as a overall theme, there's a ton more control in general from this JSON format. Whether it's a missile, a monster, a model, an equipment piece, you have control. So definitely a big boom for any of you creative types. Gives you a lot of freedom. Obviously, it might sound self-explanatory, but with Resurrected, you're no longer limited to the old palettes, where you were limited to 256 colors, and you had to choose certain palettes, and if you wanted transparent, you had to pick like pure black, and just these weird things. It's just all full RGB, including transparency. And there's a lot of ways you can control that, again, through JSON. For example, here are all the different font colors that are defined in the game. you can just change the RGB value to the exact shade you want. You can copy and paste an entry and add your own font color in. You can say, oh no, I want a bonesy green, and I just want to keep the original, but I don't know, maybe I just want to change that by, 4 values, whatever. But you can really you have full control over all that. That will include things like your sprite recolorings, the text used in game, even the fonts and stuff, like color codes and string JSONs and stuff. So definitely a nice feature there, at least for me. I know that it always drove me nuts being limited to 256 colors. So I already kind of went over UI controls again. It's all in that JSON format. You can just kind of copy and paste and edit as you need. And it's more about what images you're editing to replace things with and how you want to lay out your different panels and all that. And then the final kind of just thing that I thought of, it's obviously different between Resurrected and Legacy, is how mods in general are managed. Now you might have seen me go through this task storage a few times. I'm going to go ahead and just close that. This is the new way to kind of get all your base files. This program pulls the files from the exe itself. And so you always have like a fresh copy, if you will, just stored kind of in the game. So you can pull out whatever you need as you need it. And this is also how you can start sharing only what you want. So now in mods, let me just try to go here and show you some of the shortcuts. You can run mods with either. A lot of you may be familiar with -direct, -text as the way to run mods in Legacy. That was how you pulled from the MPQ files and all that stuff. In Resurrected, while you can use MPQ files, it's far easier, and everybody just names a folder .mpq to kind of trick the game. And then you can just treat it just like a normal, folder. And then to run the mod, you can either use -direct, -text like normal. It will require you to have all 40 gigabytes or whatever of the game extracted into your game folder. So a lot of people don't use that unless you're trying to do like shorten loading time mods and stuff like that. And the other most used way is to use the new -mod command line argument. So you just simply put -mod, the name of your mod, and then whether you're using text files or bin files, so -text if you are, no -text, just leave that out if you're not. And then you have some of the new options like -enable respec, -reset offline maps if you want your maps to regen all the time, things like that. So this is how it's all done now. And then you will have every mod broken into their own folder. And then, all the different, yes, I have a lot of cleanup to do, don't judge me. And then you have your, .mpq, just kind of fake folder there with your actual mod inside. The only other special note is that there is a mod info file now that tells the game not only the name of your mod, but where to put all your save files. So that way not only the mod files are separate, but the save files are also separate from vanilla installs. So everything is very, can't talk, compartmentalized or segmented. And as you can see, if you want to have a whole bunch of different mods, you can just kind of create a whole bunch of shortcuts, rename them, and do as you want there. So I know I've been yammering around a lot. I appreciate you guys just kind of sticking through it and being patient. And now to go over some of the things that aren't so rosy. We've made some progress on them, but we do still have some limits that we're trying to overcome. So before I jump right into that, let's see how many questions I've been ignoring. Okay, so Underground Box just has a couple questions on, how to create a red portal at any level, and then also, can you have more than 4 belt rows? So can you have more than 4 belt rows? No. The game just doesn't understand it. That's hard-coded, I'm almost positive. You're just going to get a crash when you try to use those extra rows or when it tries to go to display those. It might just not show them and just plain not function. It might just cap you at 4, but I think it actually does cause a crash if you try to edit them past 4, if I remember right. As far as creating red portals, no problem. It's a super easy recipe here. And while we have that game closed, it's a perfect time to do it anyways. So I'm going to change this recipe here since I already have it created. So I'm going to enable it. Version doesn't really matter. Number inputs, we're just going to say it's 1 input, and we're going to use item code ISC, which is for the identify scroll. So the recipe just requires 1 identify scroll. And then for the output, we're going to do red portal, so red space portal, QTY for quantity. You could also do LVL for level, but I actually haven't tested that. That's just what the Blizzard data guide says. And then the level ID of where you're trying to go. So I'm just going to put in 44 now here for now, and then I will explain that in just a second. So, all right, so let's say that's the actual recipe that you use. You don't need that. We're going to open levels.txt real quick, and that will make sense of the quantity or the level that you're inputting. So again, let's say we're trying to make a cheater recipe. I'll go ahead and show this working in game just so you can see it real quick. But let's say we're trying to make a cheater recipe directly to Andariel to Catacombs 4. If we just lock that up here, we can see the ID for that level is 37. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that QTY equals 44 to QTY equals 37, and we'll go ahead and save that change. And I'll just test that real quick in game, but we should be able to now use just an identify scroll in the cube, and it will automatically open to Andariel. And again, that will only work within the act. So if I tried to do that same recipe in Act 2, it would not work. So let's just go ahead and get a couple of those real quick. And there we go. So we've renamed our thing to the Catacomb Depths or whatever, but obviously you can know this is level 4. So here's our Andariel. We've made our little cheater, portal there. And then again, just as to nail it home so you guys don't forget, if I try to do that same thing in Act 2, you just get the I can't use that, nothing works. And the reason for that is, just as one last side tangent here, is a new file, actinfo.txt. This is new to Diablo 2 Resurrected, and this defines where the start, end, etc. Of each act is. And so, although it might kind of sound self-explanatory, because of this file, when one act ends, you can no longer kind of intermingle the portals between the acts, because it knows you're no longer in Act 2 from this file. So as an example, it would break things, but if I told the start that I was like in Act 5 town, then I could use a portal from Act 1 to Act 5, and it would work just fine, because the game thinks it's just basically in the same act. However, because there are so many hard-coded references for things like Act 2, Act 3, all the tombs and different things like that, a lot of the maps will crash if you make that kind of edit, because it just doesn't know how to handle Act 2 being Act 1 and stuff like that. So for now, at least, unless somebody can come up with a clever workaround, you can't really bypass that per act restriction, but this is where you define all the new, waypoints for that level, and what stops the portal from working in between acts. So great questions, and sorry I didn't show those earlier. So going back to just some of the other limits, as far as some of the big things that players might want to do. Obviously, models like the skill effects, things like that, everybody loves changing those, and at least right now, we definitely have some bigger limits in regards to those. So particles are the worst of the bunch. There is no editor for it, and we can only change colors of the textures and some, and I do mean a small amount, of the in-game, or the in-particle lighting. So as far as I know, this is locked with a specific build of Popcorn FX, like you just can't use any of them, and you need the project files and stuff. But I'm no 3D expert. This is just what I've gathered over the year and a half or so of modding the game. So again, these particles are every visual effect in the game. So if it's a skill, if it's a death animation, if it's a poison explosion or poison splat, any of that stuff, that's all going to be particles. Now, a lot of those particles have textures, and we can edit textures. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up Noesis here. We do have links to every tool I've been using in our Discord here, but we do have the ability to edit textures with this. So I'm just going to go to some gradients here and look at some of them. So for example, this is how it gives the that reddish orange hue to the resist fire aura. So if you wanted to make a blue version of that, we can export that as a PNG, do your edits, and then you can export it back as or import it back as a texture using something like RGBA32 or DXT5, depending on whether you're using this on a model or on a particle. So you can do that kind of stuff, but if it does not use a texture for its lighting, some of these only use like a single color, or it has just like it's baked in lighting to the actual particle, then the ability of us to edit that is extremely limited. I'm going to go ahead and just pull up a project I've been trying to convert over time. This is not public, and it's frankly just kind of mostly broken, but it does work occasionally, so I still mess around with it. This is based on a Warcraft 3 editor that I've just been trying to slowly convert to Diablo 2. So it will allow you to open up particles. Let me just try to find one real quick. Why isn't downloads just available? Sorry guys, I wasn't trying to turn this into a long thing here. I don't think that's showing the right folder. All right, anyways, this will allow you to open things. I will give it one last quick try. There we go. Let's find one I haven't renamed to a bin already. Oh, jeez. Okay, well, we're just going to say that it should open still fine. All right, so this is just kind of, again, this is primarily built for Warcraft 3, so there's a lot here I'm just not even going to bother trying to explain, but this is so far the only tool we have that will allow us to maybe change a baked-in particle color. Again, we still don't have an editor. We're not changing how it functions. We're not changing the scale, really. There are a few particles that will let you just scale in JSON, but as a rule of thumb, particles are just locked down. And if the automation function, again, very work in progress, does not work. So for example, here, I'm just going to go to perform colorize, and it's going to show me it didn't find any colors in this file, so there's nothing to change. On some of them, you'll see, let me just try to find one real quick that I know has a color. So let's do like this one. I'm going to do that colorize. You can see now it just kind of mass changes everything it found, like the red from the particle color to blue. And sometimes this will break the particle because, again, this program is just not fully fledged out yet. I'm no coder, and so I'm just doing my best, from Warcraft 3 and Java, which neither are my strong suits. So just quick reminder, that's just very locked down. There are some edits you can do in JSON with texture manipulation and things like that, but as a rule of thumb, you're not going to be editing. Models is a little better. We're getting closer to having exciting news in that regard. So the status of models is that we can export them just fine. We can also import them just fine, the model itself. So if you wanted to import Pikachu into the game, you can import Pikachu into the game. However, at least I do not know how to attach new state machines and textures to that model. So, I know how you do it kind of normally in the 3D. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know how to tell Diablo 2 to look for those state machines and textures. So what that means is even though Pikachu's in the game, it's just a gray model that doesn't have any animations unless you try to like jerry rig it to one of the existing ones or something. So we're getting close, but we're just not quite there yet where you can take any model and then just import it back into the game and have it ready to go. In a related note to that, there's a special file here, model loddesk.bin. So if we just go to the HD folder, it's right there. That has like a backup, if you will, or a definition of all the models and the level of details that they use for each model in that binary. And so you're unable to add new locations and new models to that, at least at this time. So what we've currently been doing is if we go to HD, environment, model, tests, is they left a whole bunch of extra models in here just during testing of the game, and then there's more inside the test folders. Is these ones do have LODs in that bin, so we're essentially just repurposing these since they're just unused anyways, and it doesn't break that bin file and make everything unhappy. So if your entry is not in that bin file, then the model just won't load. So models, again, we're getting close, but we're just not quite there yet because of the animations, which are controlled by that state machine, as well as the textures, which we can make. They're PBR textures, so physical-based rendering textures, which is a relatively new thing in the 3D scene. We can make those. However, once more, as far as how to tell Diablo 2 Resurrected to use them and attach to them, we just don't know how to do that yet. So I'm going to try and just real quick show you something in a model viewer just to make quick sense of that, and then we will roll back out to questions and stuff. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and, oops, looks like that was a deleted one. We'll pick another one here. All right, so we got our, Flamberge model here in the model viewer. And if I go over to the material list, you can see how it has the textures embedded into the actual model. So this is currently one of the things that, again, we just don't know how, or I don't know how I should specify, to embed that texture into the model itself, like is done in here. So it's easy to reference the textures and add those in the proper location. We do have MoPA for that. That's just a little tool, again, work in progress, but it is functional, that will allow you to, replace your textures, edit your particle textures, all that kind of stuff. But as far as embedding these new PBR materials for those textures into the image itself, we just don't know how to do. So this is a prime example of what you would see in-game if you imported that Pikachu or whatever else. It would just be a grayish model, and you wouldn't be able to attach that texture to it. So with that all being said, that's the general state of modding right now. There are some limits in some of the old file types. We still have a 255 limit on states.txt. We still have a 511 row limit on item cost.txt. We did get levels extended to 1024, so you can have a lot more levels now. And we, still have our save byte limit. So we still have some of these. Hopefully some of these will get switched out in future updates. We'll see. But overall, I would say if you can be patient for particular like particles models, we'll get to a state where those are ready soon. And the code editing multiplayer, as everybody knows, that stuff will come in time as basically the developers lose interest in pursuing all that and that kind of thing. So the big takeaway is that there's a lot more soft-coded options, and even things that aren't necessarily considered like hard-coded or soft-coded are just very editable because of that JSON format and your ability to manipulate things, add, remove, Again, you can really start changing layouts and visuals and all that kind of stuff a lot more than before. So I apologize if I was rambling at times, but I'm trying to just let you guys know what to expect, what are some of the current hurdles in Resurrected, and again, especially if you're coming from Legacy, some of the things that you may either look forward to or now be depressed about. Thanks for just hearing me out. I guess let's hop over to Discord for some of the people there and see if they have any questions. Any way to add the number of affixes for rare and magic items? Not that I know of. Got to be honest, I haven't really tried much, but I do think that is hard-coded. Yeah, sure. I don't actually remember it
Hey
because
everybody,
I'm a
welcome
noob,
back to the
so
channel.
just give me a second. There you go, sir. No problem, Smells Bad. Thanks for joining, and I appreciate you taking the time to see how the state of D2R modding is. Take care. All right, and with that, I know this time schedule, these time zones and stuff are real hard for everybody, and a lot of people couldn't make it. But that's the general rundown of where we are currently. Lots of new, smaller or bigger soft-coded options, depending on what's important to you. Obviously, some big elephants in the room with some of the things that got taken away, like TCP, or those of you who are used to being able to code edit, things like that. Again, not saying it's impossible, but it's just not supported in the public space right now. So with that, I hope you guys have found this useful. And obviously, if you guys are interested in getting into Diablo 2 Resurrected, I strongly recommend checking out our channel. We do have our Diablo 2 Resurrected modding channel, where we focus heavily on modding content, getting everybody going. We have help channels, and we have a large member count that just keeps growing from passionate players. So if this is a scene that you guys are trying to get into, definitely check us out. And not to self-promote, but a lot of the content you had been seeing today was from one of our in-house mods, Remodded. That's a very large overhaul mod that tries to not only just be a great mod, but also as a showcase for all the possibilities in Resurrected modding. So if you guys would like to take a look at some of that, feel free. I'm just real quick going to show you that, we do have a lot of options. So if you want to, make some new visuals and stuff in Resurrected, there's a lot of flexibility even with our limits to manipulate things and use different resources within those JSON files that you may not have thought were possible with the limitations. But again, because of the structure of that, it gives you lots of different options for your mod. So if you're looking for a challenge, if you're looking for some new spice, then I definitely recommend Resurrected modding and check out some of the communities and mods out there. So thanks for sticking around. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here, and you guys have a wonderful rest of the day.